On October 26, 2025, the BRICS consortium, led by China and Russia, sent shockwaves across the globe by settling a major Saudi oil shipment to India using their newly introduced digital currency, the BRIC, instead of the traditional US dollars. This unprecedented move marked a significant shift in the global economic landscape. This symbolic yet audacious maneuver directly challenged the dollar's 70-year reign, signaling the dawn of a new era in global finance, where the US dollar's dominance was no longer a given. For decades, nations outside the Western sphere harbored resentment towards the dollar's dominance and the US's frequent use of sanctions as a tool of foreign policy, which many viewed as overreach. The BRICS nations, now including major energy producers like Saudi Arabia, aim to construct a parallel financial system, one that could potentially shift the very foundations of global power dynamics. The oil for BRIC trade was a clear and unmistakable signal. American financial supremacy was no longer unchallenged, and the world was watching closely. Markets around the world reacted with shock and uncertainty, as policymakers in Washington scrambled to formulate a response to this unexpected development. The petrodollar system, which had been the backbone of the dollar's global status since the 1970s, was now under direct threat, raising questions about the future of global economic stability. By enabling oil to be traded outside the dollar, BRICS struck at the very heart of US economic power, challenging the status quo. This was about more than just currency. It was about sovereignty, independence, and the right to economic self-determination for nations long overshadowed by Western financial systems. The financial showdown had begun, and the rules of the game were being rewritten, with new players and strategies emerging on the global stage. The story of BRICS begins not in a government office, but in the world of high finance. In 2001, a Goldman Sachs economist coined the term in a research paper, identifying a group of emerging economies with the potential to reshape the global landscape. The paper grouped Brazil, Russia, India, and China together, highlighting them as the next engines of global growth, poised to challenge the economic dominance of the West. What started as a simple market label quickly gained momentum, becoming a rallying point for these nations. They saw an opportunity to amplify their voices and influence in global affairs, which had long been dominated by Western powers. In 2009, the four countries convened for their first official summit in Yekaterinburg, Russia, marking the transformation of BRIC from a financial concept into a diplomatic bloc with real-world ambitions. The alliance expanded in 2010 when South Africa joined, turning BRIC into BRICS, and broadening its reach to represent the interests of the global South. Over the next decade, BRICS members worked together to build their own institutions, such as the New Development Bank, designed as alternatives to the IMF and World Bank, which were seen as instruments of Western influence. These moves signaled a serious intent to create a parallel financial system, one that could support their development goals and offer a counterbalance to the established order, rather than simply criticize it. The slow, methodical construction of this new financial architecture set the stage for today's dramatic challenge to the dominance of the US dollar and the Western-led financial system. Over time, BRICS evolved from a concept into a powerful coalition, united by a shared grievance against Western-dominated institutions and a common vision for a more balanced global order. Their ultimate goal to reshape the global order, reduce dependency on the dollar, and create a fairer system for all emerging economies. With these foundations in place, BRICS laid the groundwork for a new era in international finance, one that continues to evolve and challenge the status quo. The dollar's dominance was forged at Bretton Woods in 1944, where it became the world's reserve currency, pegged to gold. For decades, global currencies were tied to the dollar, and the dollar to gold, anchoring the post-war economic order. In 1971, Nixon ended the dollar's convertibility to gold. But the dollar's supremacy endured. The secret? The petrodollar system. The US struck a deal with Saudi Arabia price oil in dollars, and America would provide security. Soon, all OPEC nations followed, creating artificial global demand for dollars. Any country wanting oil needed dollars, cementing the currency's global role. This system let the US finance deficits cheaply and maintain unparalleled influence. The dollar became the world's essential currency, the lubricant of global commerce. The petrodollar system replaced gold as the foundation of American financial power. This legacy is what BRICS now seeks to challenge. The dollar's reserve status grants the US an exorbitant privilege, a unique position in the global financial system that no other country enjoys. It allows the US to buy goods and services from anywhere in the world using its own currency, and to run persistent trade and budget deficits without facing the same risks or crises that other nations would. Other countries, by contrast, must earn dollars through exports or foreign investment, but the US can simply print more dollars whenever it needs to finance its spending or pay its debts. Global demand for dollar assets, especially US Treasury bonds and other safe investments, keeps American borrowing costs remarkably low, making it cheaper for the government and businesses to access capital. This privilege underwrites US prosperity and power, fueling economic growth and supporting a high standard of living for many Americans. It also insulates the US from the fiscal discipline that other countries must follow, allowing more flexibility in economic policy. The dollar is also a powerful weapon. The US can freeze countries out of the global financial system, imposing devastating sanctions that can cripple economies. This weaponization of finance is driving countries like China and Russia to seek alternatives and build their own systems. For the rest of the world, this dominance means that their economies are deeply affected by US decisions. Dependence on the dollar means vulnerability to US policy and monetary decisions. When the Federal Reserve acts, emerging markets and developing countries often feel the shockwaves, sometimes facing financial instability or crises. This lack of true monetary sovereignty fuels resentment and frustration among many nations and has inspired the BRICS countries' quest for a new, more balanced global financial order. The world's growing frustration is now driving real change as countries seek to reshape the future of international finance. In 2024, BRICS expanded dramatically, adding Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Iran, Egypt, and Ethiopia. With the world's top oil and gas exporters, BRICS became a formidable energy and commodity bloc. The alliance now controls over 40% of global oil production and a significant share of natural gas. This expansion marked a strategic realignment as Gulf states diversified away from US security guarantees. BRICS Plus now represents nearly half the world's population and over a third of global GDP. The bloc combines manufacturing, technology, resources, and demographic weight, an economic ecosystem of immense scale. With control over energy, BRICS Plus can credibly bypass the dollar in global trade. The October 2025 oil trade was just the beginning. BRICS is now a coalition powerful enough to reshape the global economic landscape. Energy is its primary lever of influence. The dollar's share of global reserves has fallen from over 70% to below 58%, a clear sign of de-dollarization. Central banks are diversifying into euros, yuan, and gold, seeking to reduce dependence on the dollar. US sanctions, especially the freezing of Russia's assets in 2021, in 2022, accelerated this trend. Nations now fear their reserves could be seized by political decisions in Washington. China and Russia lead the way, trading more in yuan and rubles. India is following suit with its own arrangements. These experiments are small but growing, building the infrastructure for a post-dollar world. The BRICS New Development Bank is issuing more loans in local currencies. Digital currencies like China's ECNY offer new ways to bypass the dollar and SWIFT. BRICS is developing a digital payment platform to link their economies outside the Western system. The first credible cracks in the dollar's fortress are now visible. BRICS's ultimate ambition is a common currency, a true alternative to the dollar and a path to financial sovereignty. The proposed BRIC would be used for trade and as a reserve asset, not to replace national currencies. Unlike the fiat dollar, the BRICS currency would be backed by a basket of commodities: gold, oil, gas, and minerals. This approach aims to build trust and stability, echoing the gold standard. The first use case is trade finance, creating a closed-loop system among BRICS Plus nations. Over time, the currency could be used for bonds and as a global reserve asset. The rollout will be gradual. First a digital payment system, then a common unit of account, and finally, a reserve asset. Each step is designed to build momentum and solve technical challenges. The dream is ambitious, but the path is being laid with precision. BRICS is moving deliberately toward financial independence. The biggest challenge for a BRICS currency is internal division. BRICS is not a unified bloc. Its members are diverse and often rivals. China's economic dominance raises fears of a yuan-centric system, especially for India. Trust is scarce. and forging consensus on monetary policy is daunting. Technical hurdles abound. Agreeing on the currency's value, its backing, and governance is complex. Not all members have open financial systems, complicating integration. The dollar's dominance is deeply entrenched in global commerce and contracts. Shifting the private sector away from the dollar will be a long battle. The BRICS currency may gain traction in state trade, but global adoption is a steep climb. Political, technical, and practical obstacles remain formidable. The era of unchallenged dollar dominance is ending, but the dollar won't disappear overnight. We're moving from a unipolar to a multipolar financial world, with the euro, yuan, and BRICS currency rising. For the US, this means less influence and new economic constraints. Sanctions will lose potency as more trade moves to alternative systems. America must adapt to sharing the stage in global finance. For others, a multipolar system offers more choice and a fairer financial architecture, but it could also bring more volatility and fragmentation. Navigating this new landscape will require unprecedented diplomacy. The BRICS project faces hurdles, but the direction is clear. Global power is shifting. The October 2020 Superpowers isobater sauvondain istoberdaperdaperdani marked the end of the beginning of a new era. The world is watching as the financial showdown of the century unfolds.